Behr joins us back on What's Next. Great to have you back with us. David is the CEO of Liquid Cloud and Cybersecurity, and a very interesting portfolio you've got, David, both positive and negative. And where I look at the positive, I look at the incredible growth that's happening in the Liquid Cloud. But cybersecurity is such an important, business decision. And when I say that as a negative, I mean it's a curse to all of us today, because when you look at all the big insurance companies and just globally, the biggest risk to business today is cyber. And the last 2 years we've seen this exponential growth of attacks on organizations. So great to see you firstly, David. How have you been?
Thank you. I've been tremendous, Aki. It's great to be back on your show, and thank you very much for having me. And I'm very excited about our topic that
Oh,
we'll be
listen,
discussing
it's
today.
I'm looking forward to chatting to you. I really enjoyed our last chat. Now, you launched Liquid Cybersecurity back in 2020 in response to the rising cyber attack frequencies the market has faced. And the past 2 years, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this because it's something that I follow as well, but we've just seen this exponential growth just going like this with cybersecurity incidents. Is that what you're seeing as well, David?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And in the last few years with the COVID pandemic, Satya Nadella actually has a quote that he said where COVID has actually brought the future forward. So the great acceleration of cloud has meant a lot of business being able to work very efficiently remotely. And I think they've changed a lot of how they're working today because of that requirement that we all got forced into being able to do remote work at the same levels of efficiency or even greater in many cases. But it's brought a new acceleration and threat of cybersecurity. So the last couple of years has been a fantastic journey for us, and I think a good journey for our customers as well. We've managed to grow our team. I think we only had a handful when we last spoke. We've grown our team now to over 25 dedicated, focused cybersecurity analysts, specialists. We can do full advisory services for our customers. We do penetration testing. We are really working with some of the large organizations across Africa to make them more secure with our team that we had. And in the last 2 years, we've also managed to grow our partnerships, deepen them with partners like Microsoft, and also forge new ones with partners like ITC Secure, which we'll talk about a bit more, I think, when we discuss the Cybersecurity Fusion Center.
So David, it's interesting you say that, and certainly since 2020, it is certainly getting quite bad in terms of the increases. Are you picking that up as well in terms of how bad is it, how bad the frequencies are, particularly the last 2 years since COVID? How bad would you say it
Look,
is, if you had to use an analogy or something?
look, I think it's clearly accelerated. It's grown exponentially. There are millions of attacks every day that are happening from all around the world. And people are getting into networks and into customer environments, regardless of where they are. And I think what's happened is because of this quick, rapid move to digitalization, very often that technology, that cloud technology has actually come in quicker
Hmm.
than you're able to resolve some of the cybersecurity issues. And very often people think about just making the cloud work rather than making sure it is secure from the very get-go. And I think it's very important when you're deploying your cloud services to think about cybersecurity from the beginning, and not just of your own IT systems, but also of your people. Because, like we saw in the past as well, your weakest link is actually your staff.
Yes.
And we need to make sure we do a lot of training, a lot of education, so that people understand that when those threats come in, very typically on email, you get a link, you click on that link, and that leads you down to what can look like a genuine form where it's asking for your personal details or for your password. A lot of people can fall for that. And so a lot of our effort is not just about upgrading the physical IT systems, your computers, your routers, but
Hmm.
actually training your staff, because you can turn your staff into a very formidable firewall to help protect your business if they understand what is safe and what is not.
Yeah,
But
you're
certainly
absolutely
the
spot
rates
on.
are accelerating and will continue to do so.
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on. I think that you're 100% right, is that the people are the weakest link in every organization. Now, let's talk about liquid cybersecurity, where you've just launched your first cybersecurity fusion center in Johannesburg. Now, this sounds very exciting. Could you explain what exactly this is and what this center will provide to African businesses and governments?
Absolutely. And I think I wanted to explain a little bit about fusion, what we mean by fusion. So, what we set up here really is a 24/7, 365 world class security operations center. that allows us to detect and mitigate threats that come in to our customers.
Right.
Now, we are calling it a fusion center because we're fusing together several ideas and concepts. First of all, we are fusing together what we've been doing for many years, which is the Network Operations Center and Cloud Operations Center. So, as you know, we launched our Liquid Cloud services approximately 5 years ago now. We've built up a 24/7 Cloud Operations Center that is operating in a number of countries today. We fuse that together with our Security Operations Center so that we combine those two together, because very often you're deploying your security services in the cloud, and you are, of course, having to secure what is in the cloud today as well. And Liquid Networks, which is really where we cut our teeth in the early days of being one of Africa's largest and continue to be largest network providers, we also have the Network Operations Center. And by fusing these three things together, we're able to have a much wider view of our customers and threats that are coming to them. So we can see those threats as they're coming down our network. We can see how they're attacking the cloud ecosystem of our customers because we're managing their cloud environment. And then we're applying these new, very often involving artificial intelligence to go through the significant number of attacks that are coming in, just to try to triage those so we can look at the real important things that we need to manually intervene on and take a bit of the noise away through our Security Operations Center. So we're fusing those three things together into this center today. We're also building a matrix of these cybersecurity fusion centers across Africa, because we believe that when we look at our customers, many of them are indeed Pan-African, and many of the attacks are coming from all over the world into Africa. And we think if we have this network of matrix fusion centers, we're able to have a much wider view of what's going on the African continent at any one time. And we can learn what's happening in, say, Lagos or in Nairobi or in Cairo or in Johannesburg, bring all of those things together and start to see patterns that are emerging, which allows us to better prevent these attacks for our customers. We also have some international partners such as ITC Secure, who have been running these centers globally in Europe, in the US, Australia for over 20 years, learned a lot of their best practices and also bring a lot of their intelligence data into our ecosystem so we can better protect our customers.
Wow, that sounds like a fascinating center. It's like you were describing the scene of a sci-fi room, the way you were talking about it. And I guess that's the way you need to look at cybersecurity, right? You need to look at it from every angle, and you've covered every part of what the threat might be, how you analyze it. It's absolutely fascinating. So, what has motivated Liquid Cybersecurity to launch this center in Johannesburg specifically?
Well, Johannesburg in South Africa is the powerhouse of Africa today. Johannesburg is that commercial center. We have a lot of our customers based there. It is a core destination of the attackers trying to penetrate into systems. There's also a very well-skilled workforce, a young workforce, one that we actually continue to train, because one of our biggest challenges we have is finding quality staff with the experience to deal with these attacks. And there is an enormous talent pool in South Africa, and part of our commitment is also to train the next generation of cybersecurity warriors, and there's a great talent pool to do that in Johannesburg. We have a significant nexus of customers in Joburg as well, and it really makes sense for us to do this initial launch there and start protecting a lot of our Pan-African customers that are based in South Africa. We will then continue to expand out into other key markets, but Johannesburg really made a lot of sense given our company's position and what is available today in Joburg.
David, I'm so glad you mentioned the skills part of it, because, of course, in this industry, as you know, and you touched on it now, that is the biggest problem, is there's just not enough skills. And for me, I think also one of the things that I've also picked up is this misconception: when you have cybersecurity, you have to have a computer science degree and you've got to be highly qualified, which is actually not the case.
Yeah, look, globally, there are over 2 million cybersecurity roles that are unfulfilled that are being advertised today.
Wow.
So there's a global shortage of cybersecurity specialists. Now, you absolutely right. A degree is certainly not a prerequisite, but an understanding of logic and being able to understand, computers, how they work, how networks work is very important.
Yes.
And so we want to take that bright young talent, really regardless of their background, regardless of what formal education they've had, and start to expose them to the cybersecurity, to the IT world, and start to train them up. And many of our top analysts end up not having come from the formal
Yes.
university system, but just really have a mind that's like a sponge. And when I spend time with a lot of our young team today, it makes me realize just how old I am in terms of being able to grasp concepts quickly, and they just pick
Yes.
things up so quickly. And it's really great to see. And so they run with that, far faster than we might expect.
Yeah.
And there's just so much material online now that people can use to learn and to skill themselves up. It really is a huge opportunity, and a global one as well. You can be based, when we're recruiting people in Johannesburg, we're competing with global companies who are recruiting those same people in Johannesburg as well,
Yes.
because really is a global threat and a global market, and the world is truly becoming flatter all the time. In terms of where you are sitting to do your work, because you don't need to physically be in a location because you're not doing physical work.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So I want to expand on the matrix that you said you want to expand and you want to have many of these centers, because I'm really fascinated by that, because certainly that's the way to go about it, almost having like a spider web of these matrix centers. Now, could you explain your future plans to expand this matrix? So we're starting in Johannesburg. What are the plans for the future?
Yeah, so over the course of this calendar year, we expect to roll out another five or six in the key markets, ones where we are already present and ones that we plan to go into as Liquid. So initially, our key markets are going to be Zimbabwe, Zambia, Kenya, and then also West Africa is a new market that we're opening up for Liquid at the moment into Nigeria. And then probably early next year, we will start to look at launching these centers in Cairo and also in Morocco.
Okay, no, that's fantastic. And I read a fascinating stat the other day that they say that in the next 2 to 3 years, approximately 300 million people are going to come online on this continent for the first time. The penetration sitting at about 50%. When you look at the way Liquid's expanding and your vision that you have to get like everybody connected and the fiber networks and data centers that are rolling out, that's a big number, 300 million in the next few years, and it's an exciting time to be involved in this business and seeing the growth that's happening on the continent. Now, one of the key benefits of these fusion centers is that they allow Liquid customers to be proactive rather than be reactive. So why is this important?
Well, it's what do they say? A stitch in time saves nine. It's prevention's better than cure, and I think that really applies to cybersecurity more than anything. Because once you've been attacked, and another very interesting statistic for you is that typically, on average, an attacker will be in your system for over 200 days. This is
Yes.
an IBM survey that's been done, and they sit there for over 200 days, slowly gaining access to more and more systems until they execute their attack. Their attacks can be done within minutes, certainly within days, and they could be lurking there all the time. So, really preventing them getting in there in the first place is absolutely critical to maintaining a safe environment. Of course, once you've been attacked, very often they would be encrypting your files, asking for ransom in order to decrypt your files. That's almost a best case scenario because you will be able to recover your files, and in theory, they won't be leaking them to the public. Of course, if you don't pay that ransom, they're going to leak all of that data out to the public. And it's a phenomenal stat also on number of businesses that actually go bankrupt within 12 to 18 months of a significant cyber attack, especially small, medium businesses. So it's absolutely essential to spend that money up front, protect yourself before your attackers get in and start demanding, because by the time they're demanding payment to not release information or to decrypt your files, you're actually too late. And can you actually trust them after you pay for this? And our advice is not to pay because first of all, you're funding the criminal activity and continuing to exploit people around the world. But also, how can you trust these people who've actually done this to you in the first place, that they are going to genuinely restore your files or actually delete your data afterwards? So really, the prevention in this case is a lot cheaper, not only in pure cost that you'll be paying someone like Liquid, but in terms of your own company survival.
Yeah. Yeah, no, those are such important, important messages there because,
Mm.
your data is so important these days, and you're quite right. The 200-day cycle that you mentioned. Another interesting stat that I heard the other day is that even when you recover your data, so a lot of people have got backup and backup and backup and backup. Um, a third of companies, no, pardon me, not a third. They're saying that only 64% of companies actually recover their full data. So you
Yeah.
lose a lot of your data, and also you don't know which of your data is still infected when you've done the recovery, right?
Yeah.
Because these guys have been around
Yeah.
in there for those 200 days. So it's frightening. And if you can prevent this from happening in the first place using liquid security, you're on a winning path. Now, you've also
Yeah, and
partnered.
actually, just let me
Yeah,
add to that. Actually, it's quite interesting. Is that when we think about how we are securing our customers, we're actually not just thinking about our customers. We're thinking about our customers' customers, because we
yes.
might be protecting an e-commerce site, for example, and all of the consumers that are logging onto that portal to buy things, they would, for example, be now protected by the fact that we're looking after the cybersecurity of that e-commerce site, so they are more confident to put in their credentials. Because ultimately, it's the customers' customers that are also significantly affected when attacks happen. So not we try to think beyond our direct customer and think about how it might affect their end customers as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's fascinating. Now, the other interesting thing that I was reading about is that you've also partnered with Exitium to offer solutions designed, and you specifically touched on small and medium-sized businesses, which is
Mm.
fantastic. Now, these small and medium-sized businesses that require security operations center services, but they can't commit to hiring all the skills. It's expensive, and small companies can't do this. So how do you see this changing the game for these small and medium businesses?
Okay, well, before I answer that question, let me just make the point that we are also wanting to outsource for large companies as well, because regardless of the size of you, you as a company are better off going to a managed security service provider like Liquid Cybersecurity to take care of all your cybersecurity needs so that you can focus on your business. As I said to you earlier, there's such a skill shortage in this market. You you as a customer or as a company would not necessarily be skilled or want to maintain and retain those skills internally. So we strongly recommend and can show a significant amount of value of outsourcing that cybersecurity center, regardless of the size of the business that you are in.
Mm.
What Exitium does, which is a rename of the company previously called Komodo, is that they offer a unified all-in-one solution for small businesses, because we find small businesses are very cost constrained and they don't want to have multiple solutions and heavy layering of different solutions into their environment. So very, very cost effective, all in one. A little application sits on your device, be it your computer, be it your phone, and can really make sure that it is preventing those attacks from happening on that device in the first place. It comes with great backup, of course, and in terms of the security operations. It still comes to the same security operations center that we would have for our larger businesses, but just the way that it's unified, the way that it deals with the threats, allows it to be extremely cost effective for the smaller business across Africa. And the other interesting thing too that people don't often think about is that your cybersecurity supply chain is absolutely critical, because
Mm.
more often than not, you will find one of your suppliers of a large enterprise are breached or hacked. And by that mechanism, they can now start to breach into the larger enterprises.
Oh.
So it's very important for a large enterprise to think about not only their own cyber protection, but are their vendors and suppliers equally protected? And we at Liquid have experienced of the attacks that we've stopped on ourselves have very often come through some of our suppliers who themselves are not completely up to speed with the level of protections that they should have. So something like Exitium really helps us bring that up all the way through the supply chain, making everyone safer everywhere.
Okay, now that's very, very interesting. Well, listen, you've given us lots to think about, and I'm glad that you're covering every scope of business, right? Because small, medium-sized businesses, they're the powerhouse of the economy, and you've got to look after them to enable the entire economy to grow. And of course, if they have a vulnerability, it's going to impact the big businesses as well. So we all have to have a standardization when it comes to security. How can businesses get in contact with you about leveraging your cybersecurity fusion center and what we've been talking about today?
Great, thanks for that. And I think the easiest way is just an email address. Please email us at fusion at liquidcloud.africa, and we will be happy to get back to you and see how we can help you improve your security stance.
That's fusion at liquidcloud.africa.
Correct.
Okay, fantastic. David Behr, it's so good to see you again and so good to chat again,
Thank you.
CEO of Liquid Cloud and Cybersecurity, and just talking about such an important topic. Thank you for joining us on What's Next, and thank you for sharing those insights.
Thanks, Aki. I really appreciate it and enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.